All right. I'm already seeing some comments out there. I'm seeing some people join us from LinkedIn. So that's good. That's why I kind of wanted to go live just a little bit early. We'll wait till everybody can join before we start talking, but certainly enjoying to see the comments. Shawna, Candace, thank you for joining us. And, certainly if you have any questions, comments, things that you want to talk about, I had to quickly get this one together just because of personal stuff and personal life. So love to hear your comments, the topics that you want to talk about. Threw some things up on the intro slide. You can see it there, but we'll get started. We'll start talking in earnest at the top of the hour. But hopefully, we'll start seeing some more people joining in from LinkedIn and YouTube. So please let me know if you can hear me okay. Should be, hopefully I don't have any mic issues this week, but let me know how you're hearing it. So greetings, everybody. Let us know when you join. And thank you, Candace. I appreciate that. See that. Yeah, and if you're on the Discord, I put this StreamYard link in there. If you want to click on the StreamYard, prefer if you have a camera, it makes it a little bit easier for everybody. But yeah, come on in if you'd like to discuss something or ask questions, discuss a topic. That would be great. So I guess Shawna, you're saving your question for the appropriate time. We'll see how we'll see if we get a few people. We'll see if Wes and Daniel show up if they're able to make it during the evenings. I know they can make it. Obviously, they can make it during lunch, but this change in time is probably throwing a few people off. Okay, now just save it. Surprise me when at the appropriate time. So no worries at all. I think we're gonna have some interesting things to talk about with that list of 75 vulnerabilities. So if we get there. Awesome. Sounds like we are, sounds like, looks like we're about to start. Okay. We are getting to the top of the hour. And okay, so greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Cutaway Security ICS Friday Infosec chat. It's May 27th, 2022. Of course, we usually do this at lunch, and I appreciate everybody that's showing up. Shawna, Candace, those are the only two that are saying anything in chat right now. I really appreciate that. I know I'm not talking to myself this time, so that's good. Thank you for joining us. If you are joining us on Twitter or on YouTube, please go ahead and put your questions, your comments, say hello. Let us know that you're out there. Let us know where you're at. I really appreciate it. And I know this is kind of confusing. Starting at 1800 on the East Coast, I'm in Central Time, so it's only 5 o'clock my time. But certainly, we all have things that come up, whether it's work, travel, and in this time it's family life. This time we've had a few doctor's appointments, had a few things to take care of at those lunch times, and that's kind of what we've been doing this week. So I appreciate everybody coming to the evening one this time. So the so. Usually if you're not familiar with what we do here, we just talk about, we're just here to talk about whatever topics you want. We have an agenda up there that I usually go by if I'm just talking to by myself, not getting questions, anything, just kind of to guide the conversation. I like to talk about what I did during the week, just because it helps people understand what other people are working on. And it's the same conversation kind of as last week. I've got a long project where we're reviewing documentation, updating test cases for a vendor solution. And it's just been a lot of work to make sure that we're doing it correctly, making sure that we're going through our rounds of review with that vendor to make sure that we're doing things right. Probably the thing to talk about from there was a conversation that we just got off. I left the conversation to come here to talk to y'all, and what we were hashing out there was the difference between the application accounts and accounts like we'd see in Active Directory on Windows, and they're actually calling it blended accounts. I didn't. This is the first time I've heard the term blended account. I actually Googled it to see if anybody else is using it, but certainly this vendor is using it as a part of their documentation. So I mean that is one of the things that need to understand when we're going into different locations, whether it's a different organization or a different vendor. They're going to be using terms slightly different. So the clarification around that was identifying specific roles and determining whether or not some users have that blended permissions, role-based access control. In other words, they've been given normal user duties or application duties, and also administrative duties. And while we can talk about, and you can look at your Windows accounts and see that we run into an issue with a lot of the applications that are implemented within control environments, especially some of the older ones that implemented their own methods for authentication and authorization. And actually, that's what I've kind of seen in my experience in the last 6 months, is looking at those applications and checking whether or not the authorization component is still being implemented within that, because when they get deployed, a lot of times that just comes as a part of the package. Most vendors have updated so that they're leveraging the Windows permissions, the Windows accounts, Active Directory accounts within that environment. But if they're lacking that Active Directory, they'll turn to local system accounts. And if or they might just turn to, okay, we don't have that Active Directory component, so we're going to implement our older version of the authentication and authorization. And that can be a challenge because there can be a lot of security vulnerabilities in that. And I obviously I'm working with the vendor, so I'm not going to name names. And I just got off an assessment with a similar type of thing. But when you go and look at different vendor solutions, when you start looking at their energy management systems, their business management systems that are being implemented in these control environments, you might find those situations, and it's something that needs to be tested and checked. So that's certainly something that we want to be doing, and that's what we're doing here. So that's the last thing that that came out of this week. So just wanted to talk about that. Of course, if you have any questions, let's talk about that. I know Candace is going to have a question, so we're going to see it popping up in there in just a second. If you just want to tell us what you're working on, want to relate to people what you're working on this week, whether it's configuring a PLC, hardening an environment, getting some training. Certainly, we want to know what's going on with you out there. I'm trying to build a community. Shawna put up that we do have a Cutaway Security Discord. So Candace, absolutely, if you want to join and just speak with people there, kind of just trying to attract people that like to educate other people, that will answer questions around these types of things. We have different channels, whether it's talking about just what you're doing right now, ICS, programming, careers, and so forth. There are a lot of different channels there. So just trying to provide a place for community interaction. And there's a lot of them out there, but I'm just trying to do my part of that. So I appreciate that. And hopefully you come join the community and ask your questions and answer questions when people ask it. That's really what I'm hoping for. So all right, awesome. Good to see you there, Candace. Make sure you say hi and introduce yourself in there. That would be great. Yeah. So, topics until Shawna asks her questions. Let's just look at the topics right there. And the next the first topic in there is Dale's ICS Security Friday. He put Dale Peterson of Digital Bond. You'll know him because of the S4 event. So a lot of you that are associated with this either went or were considering going out to Miami to attend the S4 event. Unfortunately, because of the moving schedule of, we had RSA move, we had S4 move, the SANS ICS summit moved as well. And because of all of that shifting, it was really difficult to plan and attend S4. So did that. Unfortunately, was not able to go, despite knowing a lot of people that were there. But if you didn't realize, if you knew about the event, but if you didn't realize, Dale Peterson puts out a newsletter. So you can go out to the digital S4 site. You can probably find it through that. I don't know the exact link of where you can sign up, but it's probably an easy search. But you can sign up for a newsletter that just gets shipped to your email box each week. And basically, he's highlighting a lot of the key stories that he thinks are important for the industry. So I highly encourage you to go out and check that out. So because I worked up to the last minute, we'll probably talk about a few of those today that I pulled out, and we'll click over to a link. But I see that Shawna has a question. Let's put that up. Shawna, I'm building my Wireshark skills and getting started with T-Shark. She liked my video on working with Modbus and Wireshark. I appreciate that, Shawna. It's and I believe I've said it multiple times on this in our stream. But understanding how to interact with the network is extremely important within this field. Understanding what the network flow is, understanding network protocols is extremely important. And the way to do that is to look at packet captures, to look at the the communications between applications, whether it's from a server standpoint or whether it's from, a client server, whether it's the OS, understanding that flow of information back and forth is really important. Knowing how to take a full packet capture. And what I mean by full packet capture is the communications across the whole network and being able to drill into specific communications, whether it's in Wireshark, which would be the GUI application that Shawna was talking about. But so using the GUI application is a good start. It highlights everything really well. You can easily do some display filters to drill into the exchange of communications. And you can use some of the, what's really beneficial is some of the statistical analysis. I've leveraged Wireshark in several instances. We teach it in the ICS 410. We have several labs using Wireshark, but understanding how to do that is important. And what Shawna mentioned, though, is T-Shark. So T-Shark is a command line version of Wireshark. I want to say that you can do everything in T-Shark via the command line that you can do in Wireshark. And I'm sure that there are some limitations. There's some graphical limitations and so forth. But you can usually find commands that will do exactly what you're doing in the display and do that via the command line. And I find that really useful because now I can have a setup of different commands to pull out very specific things, whether it's pulling out all of the Modbus communications and automatically writing that to a file, to displaying certain reads and writes. If I get my filters correctly, my display filters correctly. And so it's extremely valuable. And I can just have those. I don't even need to start up the GUI. I can just open up a terminal. I can run a series of commands. I can either redirect that information into a PCAP or into a text file. And that will speed up some of my analysis efforts. And so whether it's Modbus or any one of the other industrial protocols, understanding how to interact with that. We don't even need to, it's important that we understand the industrial protocols, but it's also important that we understand how to pull information about management interfaces. So the exchange between a browser and the web server on an endpoint device is extremely important. And you'll be able to, if you understand the right commands, you can quickly pull out things like HTTP digest, the basic authentication, if that's being exchanged. So if you're in the proper location and you're doing that data capture, whether it's a spam port on your network or it's some other type of device, you'll be able to pull some of that information out and get credentials, understand the insecurities in some of the implementation. So Brandon's saying, I've found Wireshark is useful for graphing and visualization. Yep, and you discovered T-Shark as well. Yeah, it's and actually, so if you look on and I put it in the Discord every once in a while. I put it out on here. I've got an actual it's called a GIST. So up on my GitHub, you can have some quick scripts that you put up on GitHub in a GIST, GIST. It's just another GitHub service. And I've collected a bunch of different T-Shark commands that I've put up there. I shared that with Shawna earlier, and but I'll put it out. I'll put it in the Cutaway Discord when we get done with this, and so we can see that. So thanks for your comment, Brandon. It's really helpful, and it's good to show that people are. I'm actually really glad to see more and more people talk about T-Shark, especially in this industry, because usually people fall back to that Wireshark. And while that's good, leveraging Wireshark is good, we need to find ways to speed up our analysis to make things more consistent. And I think that's helpful. It's good in a number of ways. And I see that Wes is joining us. Wes, I'm actually glad you said hello. I'm glad you're able to join us. Usually you're joining us at lunchtime. It's good to see you here as well. And Brandon, thanks for joining us once again, if y'all have any questions, I'm just going to keep talking rapid fire like I'm doing, unless I have a specific questions or anything like that. Shawna, you did mention that, so I see your comment, but was there another question around that? So I'm watching for that as well. Awesome. Okay, so I highly recommend you all use that. Come into the Discord, ask questions, reach out to me personally, and I'll point you in the right direction. But definitely, that's something that I highly encourage y'all to implement. Okay, so let's look until I get another question, a comment, or asking us to talk about different things. Let's talk about what Dale talked about today. So I'm actually going to do some changes. There's so the first link in Dale's notes was the CISA release of 75 vulnerabilities, and I like this just because I think that CISA's been doing a really good job outputting a lot of information. Certainly, it's you have you have to understand how to read it. It can be a lot of information, especially releasing 75 vulnerabilities and highlighting that they're important for this industry. That can be a little daunting. But let's go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing the slides, but I'm going to start sharing. Let's see. I need to start sharing a tab because I've got a tab open. And so you should see that now. So let's see. Yep. Okay. So you should see the slide. And this is just, I went to the link that was provided in the email. And it just takes us out to the CISA website, known vulnerabilities catalog. And here it's 75 new ones. Well, and we can see that these are related to different things. If you haven't seen this before, it's just a really easy method to go in and look at different vulnerabilities that have been released. I started scrolling through here and reading a few things, and a couple things highlighted to me. First of all, the Adobe. Yes, Adobe Reader. There's a lot of we still have Adobe Reader in our control environments. Uh, we're going to find it on our servers. We're going to find it on our servers. We're going to find it on our workstations. And I think this is a good example of us needing to talk about software management, asset management within our control environments. Our servers are going to be deployed. Our owners, I mean, not our owners and operators, our engineers, our field technicians, our operators, they're going to need to interact with certain files, right? But do they need every program on the servers? In other words, uh, you have an HMI. Do you need the product, the documentation, the vendor documentation on that HMI? You might need that. That might be an important aspect of it. But if you don't need that, if the expectation for that server, for that workstation is that you only leverage a browser, a thick client to connect to the HMI, that so it's displaying. In other words, you will never open up a PDF. You'll never open up a Word doc. If you've installed Adobe Reader on that, you've just added a vulnerability that might help for privilege escalation. And usually these types of softwares, they're not opening up a network service. So, the Adobe Reader, the Word, they're not going to be remotely exploitable. But once a threat actor gets access to that system, if there's a vulnerability within that application, they might be able to run it and leverage that to escalate their privileges to system. And that would be the concern here. So we definitely should be looking at these to reduce that. And I'm not sure if you can see that very well. I'm looking at it. Trying to see if I'm trying to see what StreamYard gives me to help with this. Probably the next one, and let's see if we can highlight it. Adobe Flash, does that show up for you guys? Yeah, so I highlighted that. Adobe Flash Player. Absolutely. We're working in these legacy environments, and so we're going to see some of these things. in most of the corporate environments that I've been in, Adobe Flash Player has been completely removed, and that's an extremely valuable step to take to reducing risk within your environment. But as we can see, there's still releasing vulnerabilities for it, and we're going to find those in our control environments. Yeah, Shawna, go ahead and put your question in there. I see Wes has got a question. Okay, so yeah, so let's go ahead. Let me go back to this. We'll get out of the web page since Wes has got a question. Let's see this. So maybe a little bit off topic. What recommendations do you suggest when people ask to secure level 0 and 1 devices, pumps, actuators, and sensors? Okay, so yes, so for those of you that aren't familiar with it, and a lot of you are going to be, but let me just recap. Level 0 and 1. So level 0 is going to be those sensors and actuators, the uh, uh, endpoints that are providing information to our controller, and so the actuators would be the what the controllers are taking action on to modify the process. Okay, and so those would be level zeros, and then level 1 would be the actual controller, whatever device that's whether it's a PLC or some other type of server acting as a controller. And Wes's question was, what recommendations do I have about that? Well, first of all, knowing what is out there is one of the key things. Wes, understanding how it communicates. Whenever I'm thinking about securing something, I want to understand how attackers are going to come after it. So understanding the medium, whether it's Ethernet, whether it's a serial, that goes into how you can connect to that device. And then any protocols that are working on it. So how do I format information to speak with that device? And so that's how I kind of start my thought process around understanding the recommendations associated with securing those devices, because we have to remember threat actors will get to that level at some point, whether it's their insider threat, or whether they're able to remotely gain access to some type of workstation, engineer's workstation, HMI, or something like that. And to specifically answer your question, I would say you need to look at the vendor documentation. The vendor documentation usually has a lot of really good advice for secure configuration, whether it's implementing passwords for that device, whether it's disabling HTTP access, the web interface on that device. If you don't manage that device via the web interface, then you should be able to disable it. Or you should be able to turn on the HTTPS so that there's secure communications to that. That shouldn't be a problem. So it really boils down to what capabilities does that device have, understanding it and implementing it correctly associated with the requirements for that environment. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, Shawna, I'm looking at you. I'm waiting for that question, Shawna. Yeah, and it looks like that answers your question, right, Wes? It just boils down to what is there, leveraging that, and then falling back to we've we're at Wes's question was about the actual process environment. So you're actually already down at the process, the networking and so forth, and so you're already through the enforcement boundaries. More than likely, you're through some of that authentication and authorization as well. And so now you're really looking at that attack surface. Okay, so and that's the checklist I go through. I got my enforcement boundaries, authentication and authorization, and then to the attack surface, understanding the attack surface and what capabilities are there. We might have lost Shawna, and that's great. Hopefully she got some of her questions answered. Hopefully, if anybody else is out there that is has a question, let me know. Let's go back to, we kind of talked about the CISA already. Let me start resharing my slides real quick. Let's go back to the slides. Okay, so what was the next thing? The next thing was the clarity, and and once again, this is all from Dale's stuff. I wanted to point it out that they did have a pwn to own. If you're not familiar with that, basically what'll happen is uh, there will be some devices that are identified or situations that are identified before the event, and they'll announce that there'll be what they call pwn to own, which is the device will come in configured for a certain situation. And if you're able to find an exploit for that system or for that device, and you can basically take control of it and prove that it's you consistently taking control of that device with that vulnerability, then you either own that device. In other words, they will give it to you, or if they might have identified something else like a laptop or an iPad or some other type of device that you own. Sometimes through some of the organizations that are putting on the pwn to own, you'll actually get a cash prize, maybe as well, or instead of the device, they give you the cash prize. So that's what the pwn to own um, uh, event is. And so obviously this is saying that the Clarity team went out and they found as a part of that, they found a vulnerability in OPC, and they were the OPC UA legacy Java stack. So let's unpack that a little bit, right? So OPC UA, Unified Architecture, the newer implementation of OPC that we're going to find out in environments, but then now we have that term legacy. Okay, legacy, backward compatibility. And that's anytime I see that's a great place to look for vulnerabilities. This might be a vulnerability that was already identified in the Java stack, but now it's being implemented within this product because of the requirements for the places that OPC UA is being implemented. Uh, there can be a lot of dynamics that build up to and create this situation, but that's typically where where vulnerabilities are found, is that legacy implementation, and threat actors are going to look for that. So obviously the Clarity team was able to find that, and we're successful in that. But now the teams have gone through and updated that. 1 month later, they fixed that. So I do like the pwn to owns. That it's really exciting to watch and participate in those. To me, that is like the ultimate CTF. So CTFs capture the flag events that you'll see at places like DEF CON, Black Hat, ICS Village. We're going to have one at the ICS Summit. Actually, the first day before the summit is going to be a a, a CTF, and so hopefully, y'all will set that time aside. I think that's on June 1st, and you can look for that on the SANS website. But CTFs are kind of, they set them up to be learning environments, right? But this is the pwn to owns are actually going after real targets. In other words, they are trying to find new vulnerabilities or leverage specific situations, and that, to me, that just seems a little bit more exciting. That's a little bit more cutting edge, and certainly the prize out of all of that, owning that device and the cash prize, is a lot more exciting than just winning a CTF. So both are exciting, and both are challenging in their own way. But I just like the pwn to own a little bit better. Let's see. David Lawrence from Duke Energy on how they're trying out zero trust and microgrids. And I didn't read this. I didn't watch that. Duke Energy is really respected, as well as David Lawrence. I know that he's respected in the community. What I wanted to point out on this, I knew we'd be running short on time, but he gave this talk out on the S4 stage. So this is actually up on YouTube now. So if you sign up for and look for Dale's newsletter, you'll get the link out, so you can go out and watch the talk for this if you're interested in zero trust and how they're implementing this in a microgrid. So a grid that's deployed out, probably as a part of could be a part of an organization, a part of a utility, but also implemented for like a small community or something like that. Extremely important, because those implementations are going to be separated out from a lot of the other utility infrastructure, and having that zero trust model is going to be important. So it's I'm going to have to go watch that myself, see what David Lawrence had to say about that, and I recommend you do that as well. And then the final bullet up there, I just kind of threw it up there. I'm starting to see people talk about the implications of this. Personally, I'm not sure. This, to me, it's like more big business services. But Broadcom just purchased VMware, $61 billion, I think, was put out there. That was pretty interesting, and it's. Yeah, so that's out there. Grayson, I see that you just joined StreamYard, but we're about to say goodbye. So you just got us right at the end. So sorry about that, my friend. I do appreciate you jumping on. Yeah, here we'll put you on so you can say hi to everybody.
How's it going? Sorry, I saw your post earlier and I mismanaged my time. I thought it was coming on at 6 CT. So
no, yeah, we're a little bit late today, so I appreciate it. Maybe you can jump on next week. We'll probably go back to the lunchtime. I'll actually be at the Sands ICS. I think it's the first or second day of training, but definitely will be going on during lunch and make some time. Well, actually, now that I think about it, it's going to be East Coast. Yeah, so we can do it at lunchtime. So we'll be there. So Grayson, I hope you join us there. For everybody that's out there, Brandon, Wes, let's see, Shawna joined us, Candace joined us. Thank you very much. Hopefully you got a little bit out of this. I appreciate the questions, and I hope to see everybody back next week. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Be safe and take care. And thanks for jumping on, Grayson. I appreciate that.